whatever life is giving you in this moment, that is your work or your dharma, is how Eastern philosophy would say. Like, whatever is in front of you right now is what you're meant to be working on. And it's not some course or some book or some retreat all the way out there. You can do those things, but don't ever think for 1 minute what you're experiencing right now is not exactly the school. That you're so busy doing these tools, thinking you're so spiritual, you're not addressing the root cause of some pain and some trauma that's going on. So you're bypassing the real work that needs to get done. So you go to yoga 7 days a week being, I'm fine, I'm just all great.
Yoga and meditation and some breath work, it's just reminded me a lot of times, even just in my life, to just because the breath is extremely calming. Like, it's kind of
the real life test. All those Ram Dass lectures I've been listening to for 13 years. How I'm going to deal with the mechanic in Loha. Like, what am I going to do about the situation? Am I going to...
Hello and welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Jesse, Heide, and Chioko back for another episode. We've been really enjoying your comments on all of our previous episodes. So thank you so much for tuning in, for giving us your thoughts, your feedback. Seems like some people are enjoying the pod, enjoying, listening to the conversation. So we got another one for you today. Today's episode is going to be on a couple of different things. So we're going to talk about some practices, some modalities, some tips, some tools that we use in our own lives to help us, traverse the playing field, go through the journey, traverse life,
survive,
yes. Talk a little bit about that, and also discuss kind of how this experience works, right? What is it, number one, and how do you win, so to speak, and just sort of the nature of that. How does that look, and how does that work from our perspective? And we may have, of course, different perspectives, and that's kind of the point, right? To have an open conversation on some of this stuff. So thanks again for tuning in. These two lovely ladies were just staring deep into each other's eyes, almost crying. So we had a good start, I would say, to the pod. So yeah, let's get right into it. So we were having a very funny lunch today with myself, my wife Heide, Brandon and Carl, who those of you who tune into the channel know. And when me and Brandon and Carl hang out, basically we talk a lot of shit to each other, and we make fun of each other and give each other a hard time and screw around and laugh. This is sort of the...
It's about 99% of the time, just only 99%, yeah.
At least one aspect. And we always have a very funny banter that borders on spirituality from time to time, or goes into spirituality, because we all are at different places and hold different beliefs when it comes to our spiritual lives. So me and Carl particularly are always sort of having a humorous back and forth that's been running for years now, where we kind of jokingly make points to each other to sort of pretend to convince the other person of something that really neither one of us have any intention of convincing at all, but it's just sort of this funny banter that goes back and forth. So Carl starts asking me some questions, and we end up kind of, I end up sort of giving him an explanation from my perspective of how this works, right? Like how...
When you say this, just frame a little bit. The game of life?
Earth, yeah.
Like being human, living
right,
in
like
these lifetimes.
He's asking me about... He was asking me about, reality, but really there was more so existence, right? So like, does this exist? Does the table exist? And all these things. And this was related to learning, to lessons, to levels, and it's connected to, again, our belief systems, which are a little bit different, but have a lot of overlap. It's very interesting. I actually really appreciate Carl's perspective, because Carl is and he'll come on the pod at some point for sure to talk about it, but he's Eastern Orthodox Christian. And it's, I didn't really know a lot about that. He's represented it to me a couple of times in some depth. It's really, I like it, actually.
After you said this to me before, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good perspective in my opinion. But anyway, so so we're talking a little bit, and it's kind of, is the table real? And it's like, well, it depends on what level you're asking that, right? Or are you real? Am I real? What's God? Is God real? Is it right? So it depends kind of on what level you're talking about that on, right? And so this conversation went into some of that, which I think we should touch on, and then also into what this is, right? So from my perspective, the experience of life, and that spans lifetimes and it spans all sorts of other stuff, but is essentially a training program or a school or an experience that's set up, which ultimately to me is set up by God, right? Is sort of God's program for aspects of consciousness, like individualized aspects of consciousness, which are us, which is right. We all have sort of that individualized aspect of consciousness, and then at the end of the day, the consciousness is interacting with itself in this sort of holographic training program where there is no rule book, at least printed. Like there is a rule book.
You didn't get one?
I didn't get one.
I have an extra somewhere. I can give it to you. I got this down.
I mean, it would take the fun out, but I'd appreciate it.
Exactly. I'll give you a peek every now and again. Please continue.
Right. Where there's no printed rule book, but there are rules. But the rules are malleable. So it's like there's the physical rules, which do, they exist on one level, right? It's like if I drop a cup, it will fall. So that rule exists. And if I can get my understanding to a certain level, I can bend that, right? Like I can change that. I can have a little bit different experience. And so we were chatting a little bit about it, which we've talked about before, but the double slit experiment and sort of the idea, which is proven at this point, that essentially it's our observation, it's our consciousness interacting with the quote unquote reality that makes it so. That it's really just, the vibration is just vibration. It condenses into what we call matter when we observe it. Otherwise it doesn't, which is fucking wild, right? Like it makes no sense. It makes no sense in that way. And then it also makes all of the like spiritual lessons and all the law of attraction advice and lessons make so much more sense.
It validates it.
It validates.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like for me, and I was, giving Carl an example of something that happened recently, but it's like for me, if I'm stuck, which happens not infrequently, right? Sometimes there's times in my life where everything's flowing and it's just like, you're in that groove and it's just boom, boom, boom. And then there's other times where it's just like, what the, like I can't, how do I get this thing to go the way, I expect it to, right? So when things are stuck, it's, you're banging up, in my opinion, you're banging up against an unlearned lesson. Yeah. Right? You're banging up against sort of the walls of the program, of the sort of hologram or the rules of the program. And so then to shift that, you have to unblock, right? Everyone talks about like you unblock something, you unblock yourself, but really the unblocking is a checkbox on a lesson that you just learned. Yeah. So you figure out whatever that thing was that you needed to learn in order for that thing that you want, because it's designed that way. It's designed that you want stuff, but then to get the stuff, you have to learn the lesson that you've designed probably ahead of the lifetime to learn. So right, and so we were talking about that, which I find this
was your average lunch conversation. It's a Thursday, and why not just have this be chatting over
Meanwhile,
coconuts
Brandon's like dying from a cold, and he's like sitting there,
unamused.
He was definitely unamused, but
So pretty much what she's saying is like the life experience is like a video game, right? Yeah. Where you can see different levels.
I agree.
Where you are going level by level, and you cannot really see further than certain points, and then you can see once you get there, you will be able to see more.
Yeah,
kind of
I
like
think
that.
I think it's
Yes.
exactly like that. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Have we talked about this as a metaphor, the video game thing? Or maybe, I
We
can't
may
remember.
have.
Well,
I'm not
Or
sure.
even just you and me on side conversation. Because
I
that's
think probably it was something that I talked with you, maybe. That
I-
it
there
looks
was
like
one
that
of-
experience.
like 10,
Interesting.
10, 15 years ago. It's 10, 13 years ago. On my spiritual journey, that was beginning, very beginning. That was one of the metaphors that actually made me get it. And I don't play video games as an adult. I know a lot of people do. I just don't. But the last thing, my only reference is Mario Brothers from like the 1990s. And it's very simple. It's like one of the first at-home, most popular video games. There's something like 10 levels. And you got to like do all the things and avoid the dragon and like go get the coin and whatever. And then you go to level 2. Or you could fall down the pit and die. And then you go back to the beginning and you start all over again.
Exactly.
And I'll pause on that because I think there's so many metaphors within video games, which brings up, is this reality? Is this, what is the hologram? The metaverse that's being built right now from a technological standpoint, actually like real tech. I'm like, we're just mirroring the mirror of the mirror. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's exactly
We're recreating
That's
the recreating.
exactly right.
And then there's so many thoughts I have, like when you're saying, is this table real? There is no spoon.
Right.
You know that?
Exactly.
Like from the Matrix, that quote, there is no spoon. And that's what you're saying. I'm like, this is exactly what you're speaking about. And I have yet to meet anybody who I'm positive they know how this all works. To answer your question, I don't think any of us do. And I don't even think any of the people that are out there writing all the books or on the stages or the swamis or the gurus or the shamans or the whatevers, they are also seeking. And perhaps some of them are very gifted in touch and offer some guidance and help us on our journeys. I'm talking like more shamanic level, like they're much closer to the plane of the edges of reality. And they can maybe help us on our journey, but they don't even know how this all works, in my opinion. And if someone out there knows who these people, like drop it in the comments. I'd like to meet them. We have some questions. We'd like to bring them on the pod next. And I also appreciate, like, did that intro just make you sweat? Because this is a big topic.
Especially since we don't prepare.
No, we don't. I could totally feel that. As you were even speaking, I'm like, I'm getting nervous for this conversation right now. I'm like, nothing like taking on all of reality as a topic around our table with coconuts.
We got 45 minutes left.
Cool, guys. Yeah, I think it's only 40 now. Yeah, you got. I mean, Heide, what does this bring up for you in terms of the video game thing, maybe, or anything else? Like, what are some thoughts maybe around all of this?
I personally am not like a seeker. I in my personal life, I like to try to get the answer that is right for me in the right time, and I am not trying to go furthermore because I already know that I have plenty on my hand to work on. So I just let my life flow with what it is, and with what I've been learning, apply and put more consciousness on my actions, be more aware of why this is happening to me in my life, and work on it because it's a gift for me. Like the fact that it came to me for me to work is a gift.
Wow.
So I am not looking for. There is a lot of conspiracies in the world, like so many, and like for me, try to spend time with someone else, trying to tell them, oh, why I believe this, or if they want to tell me about theirs, I am happy to listen, but it's not that I'm trying to find out. I'm like, whatever I have my plate is what I need to know at this moment because it's what is gonna guide me on my path. So I'm happy with that, and like I had conversations with Carl as well with these kind of things, and I try to step back my ego because there is an ego saying like, but then how is possible that in your religion this happens, and how can you explain this? Like there is kind of like a step back and have empathy for the other people's path and understand that they are where they need to be.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I wonder too, Heide, because we met probably about 13 or 14 months ago. I got to Vilcabamba. I met both of you about the same exact time. It was last year, August, so just over a year ago. And I know through what the phrases that we use here, like the spiritual awakening or spiritual awareness that you came into. Would you say a year ago you were actually seeking more than you are now? Like, has that shifted, or you're never really seeking?
I am not a person that is seeking.
Because I remember there were
I'm
books
happy
that
with
you were
whatever it
reading,
is.
and there was like things that you're curious about.
Yes.
And you're like, wait, and then there's this book, and Eckhart Tolle wrote another
Yeah,
one, and what happened?
It was that time. That was the awakening time. It was
Yeah.
I needed to follow that path. That was
Uh-huh.
what I was calling.
Yeah. So how did that look compared to where you are now? Because I'm feeling a shift.
So I'm comfortable where I am now.
Yeah.
Which before I was kind of like I didn't understand nothing about life, or I was in the matrix. Kind of like I was like, okay, now it's time to try to understand why my whole life's been like this and why I having the same patterns over and over. So I think that was like part of the awakening process.
Yeah.
But in my natural, I remember having conversations with people that they're like, well, what if like the earth is rounded or is flat? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Nothing will change for you if like it's one or the other one. Like, where are you trying to get from? It's like, just be in peace with what it is.
Yeah.
And be in peace with what you don't know. No?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you shared is actually a great way to share a really beautiful answer, like a really beautiful lesson on how to live. And I also think that there's different blueprints, right? So it's like I need to understand the mental side of things in order to be able to do anything with it. And that may be more sort of like the masculine mindset, frame of mind. Whereas you can just sort of open to it, feel it, and move forward and just kind of let that come in. You don't need to understand it, like mentally. Like, you don't need to have that sort of like, I see all the big aspects and I see where that fits, and I see, you don't care. Like, it doesn't help you. If I don't have that, I can't, like, there's not.
You can't get down with it.
Yeah, there's nothing.
But you're putting up a limitation on it then. Because like you are looking for something to continue instead of like using what you got and keep going.
Yeah. So from my perspective, right, I would say the same thing about you, right? I would say like, what do you mean you don't want to understand these? Well, then you're stopping yourself there, right? Like, so a lot of times, but I think it's actually the perfect, because it's very much, from my perspective, it's very much like the masculine feminine difference.
I was just gonna say that
in a lot of ways. But I really love the video game analogy, because I believe very much that as above, so below, right? What's true on one level is true on all levels, and add
just another sentence or two about the as above, so below, because you use that a lot, and I feel like some of them might recognize it, but just expand a little bit on that phrase, because it's a great one.
Yeah. So, it's. To really get into that, I have to go for a while, but I guess distilled to its like the simplest form that I can, the truth, or the truth of something, like the essence of something, is revealed in all aspects of that thing, right? So if something is, I'm terrible at metaphors, but we're gonna go for it. If something is unhealthy for you, for example, you're going to find evidence of that in every aspect of it, right? So you'll find it on the label, you'll find it on the box, you'll find it in the manufacturer, you'll find it in the ingredients, you'll find it in what it is, you'll find it in, if you think about it logically, it's just, everything is true, everything reveals itself on all levels. Which, probably not very well said, but that's as very briefly explaining. So I believe very strongly that what we do as humans is we recreate on Earth like this, with our hands, like our brain in our hands like this. We are just recreating everything that was done to us. And so literally we have constructed video games, which has recreated the exact simulation we're living in.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the perfect analogy. So you mentioned you fall into the pit and you die, and then you start back at zero, but now you know the pit's there. And so you try again, right? You go through like next lifetime. And
the idea is you progress and you ascend and you get better and you can keep going up. Yeah.
Exactly. And
that's the idea.
And you learn the lessons, you get frustrated, you quit, You come back
Totally.
and try again.
Try to deny it. You try to
Right.
push it away. It's
Right.
like, no, you got only way is through.
And then you go through, the analogy being the dimensions, right? So
Mhm,
you
mhm.
ascend to the next dimension.
Mhm.
You go, and then you finish
Yeah.
all the dimensions and you complete the game. And you don't know what comes next, right? Like there's,
Yes.
but you know, you finished with, let's say, 12th dimension in our reality potentially. And there's something after that we don't know.
Yeah.
But it's
It's a great metaphor, the video game thing. I'm so glad you brought that up right at the beginning of the conversation. And, I can go in so many little tangents about it because in this, theoretical video game of life, which it could be said is a simulation that we've created, and just to drop a bomb on something, like we are God, God is us. We're all in this oneness of energetic spirit. So through us, it's been said in some Eastern philosophies, like we are all bits of God, pretending that we don't know that we're God, going through this experience to help further our consciousness expansion, right? Our ascension, like moving up the quote unquote ladder. But it shouldn't be like, oh, you're only good if you get high up the ladder. It's like we're all having the right experience that we're meant to be had. And so in this metaphorical video game, there's all these secret doorways too. There's all these possibilities of where, like in Mario Brothers, literally, it's like if you know that behind the dragon to get to the princess, they're on this rock wall. If you jump there 3 times, you can actually go through and ascend to the next level. And I think in our lifetime, like in our experience, we're given moments and opportunity where, like, if we radically show up as our highest self, if we get through this unbelievable challenge, if we just surrender the ego for a moment, we can never do it fully, that's not healthy, but just figure out how to work through our insecurities, right? And all these things that hold us back, all this fear, jealousy, all the things, the rage, the anger, the self-doubt, overcome the traumas. I think there's actually lots of little secret doorways where boom, in this lifetime, but we can't get obsessed with it. You can get obsessed with video games a lot. And it's like, I've caught myself doing it. It's like, right now in my life teaching yoga, it's not quite this, but I've done other things with like health coaching. I always use the example of being vegan for 3 years. Like I got obsessive. I was like, I'm going to raise my consciousness, save the planet and the environment, and it's got to be vegan. And it was overnight, and it was just, I fell down a pit. I got myself trapped because I was just trying way too hard. But I think there's ways to manipulate the game. So like that secret doorway I was just mentioning, something that you said earlier in the beginning, Jesse, is like, there are rules like gravity. If I push that coconut off the table, it will fall and probably shatter and make a mess on the floor. I can't fix that right now. But there's other things that go on that as humans, we think are fixed rules, and they're not. Right. And they're actually bendable. And there's ways that we can find these little openings. And how do we bend reality? Maybe I can't change gravity, but there's a lot of other things that I can shift, and how we even just show up for each other and the energetics. Like, I think there is no rule book that's been handed to us, but I think if there was a rule book, the biggest rule is like, none of this is actually real. Mm-hmm. And maybe as our, collective consciousness as a human species does ascend and does rise, if that's what's going to happen, we could do things like bend gravity and shift that reality. I mean, there's a thing called quantum healing that I know we all believe in. We know that we do. I've done quantum energetic healing as a practitioner for years previously. And it's working with people that are on different continents and clearing energetic blockages that they have. If that's possible, maybe one day, I don't know when, we could stop that coconut from falling with that kind of gravity. It's good to have goals. You never know.
Yeah. I think, I'm going back to like the video game. I remember something that happened to me during my awakening.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because I never noticed about this text in town. It was a wall, and the sign said the only way out is in. And when I saw that, it was the first time I saw it, but I needed that. It was like a message for me. Yeah. Why I didn't see this before? Just I need to receive this message thing. And then like I was going through that thought constantly, to trying to understand what that means, or what is, if there was something inside of me trying to seeking through that road. So it's funny with the video game, it feels a lot of time like a trap. Like you cannot really live like, I'm gonna commit suicide and like I'm gonna be done with it. No, there is no way.
You're just getting a return ticket right back to where it started.
Exactly. So it's like, it's a trap. Like there is a lot of questions for me, like, is this real or not? But anyways, I believe that we have to accept where we are. Like, for example, if you are vegan or someone is vegetarian, or I think we are all doing good because your path is not the same as mine. I have to accept that. I want to be like Jesse. Jesse's super smart. Like, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna be till like him when I'm his age.
Please keep being
No,
you,
at
by the
all.
way.
Like,
Love you both, but please keep being you.
We are building our own path.
Exactly.
And we just have to be happy with it. Like, it doesn't make someone better because it's vegan. Or I think we are trying. We are, if there is intentions of do something good for Earth, like, that's a beautiful intention.
And we can do that in different ways. So in a quick couple of things, there's 100, but I'll just pick a couple. What you're saying about the signs, my guess is that sign that the only way through is in or whatever it was, that was there probably for years and you just never saw it. And like the video game, when you go back to square one because you fell down the pit and the dragon got you, back, you're going to actually see like stuff you didn't see the first time around. And then by the 100th time around, it's like, okay, I got this. I'm jumping over the snake pit. I know not to go underneath that lightning bolt, and you see things that were always there. And I think through the consciousness awakening process, and I'm not hung up on those words. Some people might be like, what is consciousness awakening? It just means maturing as a soul being, as a spiritual being, and furthering your life experience, being a good person here. That's like universal, non-religious, specific language. You start to realize like we have all the information and messages all around us. We have all the signs that we need. We just have to start tapping into them. And I think what you're saying, Heide, is like you accept whatever life is giving you in this moment. That is your work or your dharma, is how Eastern philosophy would say. Like whatever is in front of you right now is what you're meant to be working on. And it's not some course or some book or some retreat all the way out there. You can do those things, but don't ever think for 1 minute what you're experiencing right now is not exactly the school that you're supposed to be in. And I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it. And like you see signs, like you're accepting the present, but you're looking for signs of how to handle the situations.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the traps piece is interesting, right? There's traps everywhere, and I think again, I've mentioned this this concept before, but to me, the traps are kind of the parameters. They're sort of like the fail-safe mechanism, right? So because if you discovered an answer, let's say it was veganism, right? You discovered, it doesn't matter, any physical answer that we could perceive as an answer to what ails us, like to our problems, to just the problem of human suffering, like this problem of like life can be experienced as not pleasant, right?
Right.
If there was a physical answer for that and it was the answer, there wouldn't be any point to the experience, right? We wouldn't learn anything. We'd see a vegan person and they'd have no problems and we'd be like, oh, let's try that.
Yeah.
And then we would be done. It'd be over, right? And so there are, all roads lead to Rome, and there's many, 9 ways or million ways, whatever, to skin a cat. Like there's there's solutions that help, right? There's physical stuff that plays a role, right? Like you can detox your body and feel better. You can change your diet and feel better. You can exercise and feel better. You can meditate and feel. But at the end of the day, external solutions cannot be the ultimate answer because they would get in the way of the ultimate lesson that goes back to we are in charge ourselves, and it's us actually sort of superar, like overcoming, like overcoming, transcending, superar, that's the word I'm looking for, like transcending this reality, right?
Yes.
And you can only do that internally, right? You can't do that through veganism. You can't do that through any external thing. You can only realize you are the essence, you are the master creator, you are the one actually creating the experience for yourself. And so all those traps are there to like nudge you back onto the road, because we all find something that we think is a solution and then we dive way too deep into it. And then we get ourselves all screwed up, and then we're like, oh crap, let me take a step back and try something else. But a lot of times we're still searching for the next external
until
solution.
you heal what's that thing inside that needs to be healed. And I think that's what is so tricky sometimes. It can be so confusing because we don't understand what that wound is, and we're trying to use things like veganism to help us. And not everybody, like I actually, whoever's vegan, like I massively support that. Like that's their lifestyle. I think there could be great benefits to each their own, but I use it as an example for me. And just to add on to what you're saying, all of these external activities that we do, those are the tools that are meant to help us actually on our own journey ascend on our personal development, our consciousness path. So meditation and yoga are often traps to people. People get devoted, they get so down the yogic rabbit holes, of which I've been to, like, I think I've been to the bottom of a lot of rabbit holes. Like I actually went all the way down, and maybe I'll keep going on that metaphor. At the bottom of the rabbit hole, I'm like, this isn't actually helping the wound that's inside of me. Like I need to make peace with something that's inside of me. Maybe it was actually my career, 10, 15 years ago that was so hollow and it was so empty to my personal soul's journey. And somehow I thought like being a meditation teacher while still being in the fashion industry was going to actually be okay, until I made that connection of like, I need to make changes in my own life. Meditation helped reveal to me what I need to work on. It's not preaching or latching on and especially making other people believe your tools are the one and only way to do this. I've said this before on this podcast. That does not work. And I know that because I've tried that many a times. And I don't actually do that much anymore. Catch myself on occasion. And there's a phrase that I love, and it's don't take the bait. And those are the traps. When you're on that video game and it's tempting to go through that door, but like, wait, I know the dragon's there and I don't want to take the shortcut because I know I got to go around. These are the traps to not let the next guru who comes along with some tantric meditation, whatever that might be, to feel like that's going to solve all of my love issues. No, we need to use it as a tool to inspire us. Don't take the bait and think that that one guru is going to be the thing, or that one paleo diet or whatever it is. Like if I fix all these external things and I do all this stuff or tell my husband or wife what to do, no, that's like taking the bait to think that like that's going to fix things. Resist the bait, always go inward, and then we can play with the tools. We can have fun with them.
Yep. No, and I think it's very easy to spend your whole life just searching.
Absolutely.
And just
and spiritual bypassing is what I'm talking about. Do you mind if I just say with spiritual bypass? Like, have you heard that phrase before? Spiritual bypass. I might have mentioned it. It's a fairly common or well-used word in the maybe spiritual growth area, but spiritual bypass is when you have some kind of wound or pain. You might not know what it is, or you might know, and you become so spiritual, often with the practices or tools like yoga and meditation, that you're so busy doing these tools, thinking you're so spiritual, you're not addressing the root cause of some pain and some trauma that's going on. So you're bypassing the real work that needs to get done. So you go to yoga 7 days a week being, I'm fine. I'm just all great through my divorce. No, you're not. If that's a real thing that you have to go inward, is trying to skip this work, is the spiritual bypass. So I don't know what you were just saying that made me think of that. Like that's back starting the game again. You will go back to the beginning and have to do it again.
It's just another trap.
Yeah, like, it's a trap.
It's just another trap.
But also like the double purpose, no? Like the a non-tangible purpose and the physical purpose, right? That we are here, the duality. So I don't know. I think there is a balance that you have to find in order to do this. Realm or reality. I don't know. Some people call it realm.
This realm of reality.
Exactly. So.
What does duality mean to you in a way? Like, how would you explain duality to me? Like, as you kind of feel it is or understand it to be.
So like there is the opposite of the one. So if there is good, there is bad.
Yeah.
Is as above, so below. That's kind of like the same. So it's in this case, the spiritual is what is tangible, and the physical is the tangible. That's the duality that they connect, right?
Yeah.
That we both have to work in both, and you cannot get lost on the spiritual path, because you also have a work to do in this physical. This is the real realm that we came to do, which is material.
Yeah, I mean, I think that balance, which is kind of what you're describing, is often the answer to the test. on earth, right? It's
Yes.
it's very easy to get extreme in anything. Even the most extreme good turns bad, right? It's very easy to get extreme in anything, and I think that always leads to failure. And so the balance, as you're describing, between, you know, sort of physical and non-physical, or spiritual and material, or whatever, is, it seems to be one of the unwritten rules, or one of the rules,
or every spiritual
Maybe
book talks about
someone
it.
wrote
It's written,
them down.
it's written in every book we've ever picked up.
Right.
But I feel what you're saying, and maybe, Jesse, it's like, I feel sometimes we can intellectually know these things, but it's so hard to live that minute to minute. And we talk about that a lot in this pod because it's so true, or at least for me. And duality, I totally agree with you, Heide. For me, the word simultaneous comes up at the same time. So how are we in touch with our spiritual side and our spiritual selves, and knowing we're all one? You know, I am God, God is part of me, we've all created these things. At the same time, deal with real issues, like real drama that happens, something that goes terribly wrong. There's a death in the family. It's like, well, wait a minute, how am I all blissfully and spiritual when someone just tragically died in an accident, or something that happened, a fire, wildfires? Like, how is that right? Someone's house burned or a farm burned. To have the duality, to know that in this real tangible life, we're still having human experiences and emotions that can be sad, and it can be difficult, and it can be rough, but at the same time, we're also spirit. And we actually chose every single experience. Like, even as I'm saying it, I'm like, that is tricky business. Yeah. To really, like, I confuse myself. Like, you get caught in your own little cycle of like, well, what is real? Back to the original topic of like, what is real?
Mm-hmm.
So now that we've, you know, deconstructed reality fully, and we all understand we're enlightened now, I think.
Yeah, I think we've won the game in some way. Yeah.
We're now all enlightened.
No way.
Catch us in the 13th dimension for the next pod episode.
I don't know about you guys down in third. But...
yeah, exactly. We'll send you the handbook. You're gonna be fine.
But no, but jokes aside, so let's jump into what some of the, you know, now that we said all the modalities are useless because it's all just us, what are some of the modalities that you know, that you guys find useful to you in whatever you're trying to accomplish? And I think for most people, a lot of what they're trying to accomplish is just to feel okay and enjoy the, like, sort of have a reasonably acceptable, you know, experience. And of course there's goals within that we put importance on. And you know, people ask me, like, what's your biggest goal? And for many years I've you know, I said, like, well, to not come back, you know, like I'd like to be. You
said that to me before.
I'd like to be done. Like,
yeah,
I'd like,
exactly.
you know, I'd like to not keep doing this.
Yep.
Anyways, whatever the goal is, but yeah. So if either of you guys want to start, like, what are you guys doing these days that's helpful?
What are we doing? So I like that framing. I'll start. Do you want me to? I'll go and just say, what am I doing these days? Because I have about 13 years worth of stuff to talk about, so we can make multiple episodes about all the different practices and techniques.
And we will.
Exactly. Stay tuned. And actually, I would love to share that because, as most people do, maybe not everyone, I have evolved, or I've changed, I've shifted, like 13 years later, even just from a growth standpoint. When you're, whatever it is, 30 versus 43, like, you are a different person. So what worked for me, you know, years ago, maybe it's not a fit, and then some of them come right back full circle. Yeah. And I'm back to using the same technique from 10 years ago. But the kind of kickoff was, you know, what are we doing these days? And at risk of being a cliche about yoga, I will talk about yoga right now. This could be a whole episode in of itself, like what yoga means to me personally. And I'll keep it a little bit high level because I want to be able to touch on some really important things of, like, how is this a tool for me? You know, it feels almost a little bit pedestrian and oversimplified to say, well, yoga is a tool that I use to be getting by, just be baseline okay. It's so much more than that. But at a basic, you know, first explanation, I'll say it is a tool, and it's a multi-dimensional tool that can help you on every level of yourself. So it can help you on the physical plane, on the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual plane. Those are the four that I roughly talk about all the time. Yoga actually touches every single one of those, because through the physical asana practice, which is the poses that you do on the yoga mat, is two of my most dedicated yoga class attendees here. They're on the journey, and we have so much fun with other regulars who come. As you guys know, I'll just talk to you guys. that physical practice opens up so many dimensions. Like, no one walks out of there not having scrubbed themselves clean on an emotional level, stirred up the mental conundrums, and found perhaps a bit more peace, a bit more clarity, like what's going on up there, because we are complex humans with our minds. And no one leaves one of my classes without having some sort of your heart touched in some special way on a spiritual level. And I can't speak on behalf of all the people who come or all the yogis out there, but I do think that's a very common experience with certain types of yoga practice. And for me, that is what I'm doing these days. I started practicing yoga 13 years ago at Jivamukti, just such an enormously special place in my heart. Jivamukti Yoga School in New York City in Union Square, the original biggest studio. It's not there anymore, but there's other locations around the world, Jivamukti. And I have a lot of inspiration from that practice in my class. So that's something that's actually been with me over 13 years. But there's been absolute periods of time where I have to say, I'll just admit this, I didn't get on my yoga mat for over a month or two at a time. It just wasn't part of my regular routine. I was doing other things. I was focused on other stuff, at other ways of fitness and my own spirituality and meditation. So I think it's nice to have to tap into your own ebb and flow and recognize when a tool might have like served its purpose for a period of time. And then maybe you're on to the next thing and maybe you'll come back to that tool. But right now, for almost a year, actually it's what is it? I think it's December, like the first week in December was the first yoga class I ever officially taught in Vilcabamba. We're almost at a year now. Yoga has been my biggest tool because I teach it twice a week, and it's made me do so much self-study. And I'll save that for another part of this conversation or a different one. But the Eastern philosophy that Jivamukti Yoga weaves in, I mean, that's at the essence and the core. Like I talk about the Bhagavad Gita, I use Sanskrit words. You know, being a teacher, taking the role of a teacher is such a profound responsibility that I take with a reverence, you know, a seriousness of respect. And so I do a lot of study and like being in these spiritual texts between different classes and kind of figuring out, all right, what are not just the poses, but what are some inspirational like lessons or metaphors to share? That's actually a tool to me. So bringing things to other people, being of service to the community, to be a yoga teacher here is actually of the greatest service to me, I think. So that's a big one for me right now.
Thank you for sharing. I think
Yes.
I want to confirm some things that you have shared. For me, in my yoga practices, it brought me a lot, and it's one of my practices as well to.
You are dedicated
Yes.
and you're consistent about it. Yes, absolutely.
And a big reason is because I'm trying to find balance in my life where I am working and I need to get out of the mind.
Yeah.
I need to like go deep on me because there is two purposes. So that's the other purpose for me.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go deep and
like spiritually, mentally,
exactly.
emotionally deep and physically deep exercises that you're doing. Yes.
So I want to confirm that I got deep connections with the yoga when you were teaching. I agree that you do put a lot of dedication to every class. Every class is different. Every class has another teaching, and it's beautiful. So I know that I'm coming in, I'm going to learn something new. So and for myself to have that space had opened up the silence of my mind to let something more powerful to communicate with me. Yeah. You know, stop the noise.
It opens a doorway that's often closed.
And have answers that usually in my normal life I cannot do it. It's because I'm focusing on...
It's a tool to open that doorway.
Yes, exactly. So that's one of my biggest practices that I'm doing right now. I'm doing twice per week. Mm-hmm. If it was more, I would be more. And even it's hard for me because I'm very comfortable in the matrix world, in the working. So I enjoy it. For me, like to get out of that and be comfort somewhere that it's deep. You have to look inside. It's uncomfortable.
Emotion comes up during some of these poses.
I have cried a bunch of times.
You're not the only one, too.
And I was like, wow, why?
Yeah.
And memories will come while I'm doing something, like why I'm remembering this now. Yeah. It's like whatever I'm doing there, and you are guiding us is like a ritual to find something in our lives. So that's
Beautiful.
a huge piece for me, and I very much appreciate that you are on top of all the things. Never, even if rains, nothing will stop you.
Rain or shine, yes.
Yes. So I'm happy for that.
Thank you.
One of my other practices, which is like you don't need to, like, for example, I say to the people that watches to this, is like, it's not that you need to yoga or you need to meditate, like whatever is good for you.
Yeah.
For me, when I cannot do this, and when I am in a position where it's difficult, it's my practice. That's my practice. Like, I need to like step back and look around, like what's going on, why this person is behaving this way. Like, when I don't do that and I fell in that trap, then like, oh, okay, it's okay, next. But the key for most of my practices is have empathy towards the other person, because it can be easy to think that the other person is trying to attack you. It's personal, but instead of that, think this person is suffering and wants help, like wants a compression, guns, which for us very easily as you say, go down the road with them. Like them, you guys. Yeah. There is two to tangle, and instead of that, you should like step back and look and do your best.
Yeah.
So for all the viewers, like, I think to try to practice that, especially when things are difficult, I think that's the lesson. And if you're doing that, that's good enough. So that's my other practice. When I'm not doing yoga, that's the other thing I'm doing. Be present, I think.
It's beautiful. Do you have a phrase or something that you repeat in your head? And for me, sometimes I just have to close my eyes and I actually say out loud, maybe not if people are around and right next to you, but I say, it's happening for a reason. It's happening for a reason. Like, that actually helps me. It's like a out loud, not even a meditation, because I'm not, but it's a practice. And I might even just sit there and breathe. Like, do you do any of those things? Or are you able to just like keep going and manage the kids and answer the email and just keep that in your head?
I think one of the things is like take 5 minutes and just let the whatever is the energy that is around, to just let it flow, because it is not gonna stay there forever. It's like everything up and down, and trust that it's gonna be over at some point, and it'll be good with anyone. No one wants to live in that environment, and the best you can do is not feed more to that uncomfortable state. Just learn the lesson of what's behind. No, what do you think?
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'll remind myself that we're all one. Like, I'll tell, like, because I'll be ready, I want to kill somebody, or I'll be having some judgmental thought, or I'll be, sort of cursing someone in my head or whatever. And I don't want to do that. Like, right? Like, that's not going to help me in my life, and that's not going to help me with my goal of not coming back.
Exactly. Good luck with that.
Right. Like, I don't want to, and I do understand the law of attraction. I've experienced it over and over, and all I do is experience it. So I don't want negative thought forms. I don't want negative thoughts about people. I don't want to be judgmental. I don't want to put that energy out. So I'll remind myself, because I actually truly believe that every human I'm interacting with is an aspect of my consciousness that I'm interacting with. So if you can remind yourself of that, this person is me. Like, we're all one. This is, that's been helpful to me. But
it's hard.
It's really hard. Yeah.
Oh my God.
No, and all of these things I've noticed. I mean, again, it's not exactly a news flash here, but all of these things, they actually really do take legitimate amounts of discipline.
Oh, right? Gosh,
like,
yes.
It's one thing to know, like, I should X, Y, Z, but the discipline piece is critical. So for me, it's also been a very long journey, right? Like, I mean, I don't think anyone's life is easy. Like, in fact, I even hate the idea that people sort of judge people. It's like, if you know somebody who's got two parents who are together and they came from like maybe wealth or
must
something,
be nice.
like an easy life, right? Those are some of the most difficult lives, like some of the most
I agree.
and then vice versa. You can
this.
have people who were kicked out on the street and had a horrible childhood, but it gave them the answers of like, oh, this is how you flow through life and just rock and be happy and accept it, right? So I think everybody has a difficult experience on Earth as a human to some degree. mine is certainly no different. So, you know, my life I've experienced my life as difficult, right? Self-created difficulty, basically. And so the way that's played out for me is it's played out through sort of tremendous victories and tremendous losses. And then a lot of what I deal with mentally, emotionally, it plays out through my physical body. So, you know, there were a couple years I couldn't walk. I had a knee so bad I couldn't walk. I've had various health things that I've dealt with that have been dramatic. Like they've been, you know, significant challenges, and all kinds of other stuff. And so, as a result of sort of experiencing life as being difficult, you search for answers, right? You search for solutions. So I've been searching for solutions for, you know, a long time. And yeah, so here's some of the things that have helped me. So definitely body work in general, I've found to be very useful, whether that's yoga, whether that's exercise, whether that's deep massage, like all of those things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the arts in general, like moving in that way, rhythm. Like I don't.
Is this the tango dancing?
Oh,
you're
were
doing?
Referring to basketball. Yeah, basketball is very helpful for me actually. But getting in, because at least for me, I store in the body, and so the more that I can access the stuff through the body, like that is a doorway in, which helps.
It's on a physiological level for you. The clearing.
Yeah. So that's certainly one thing. Then, you know, I think all of us, if we're wanting to sort of be in control of our organism and our experience, we're trying to tame the mind, right? We're trying to like sort of get control of the mind, or be in the driver's seat at least of our thoughts and our sort of, you know, all that stuff. So of course everyone says the things, but they're actually true. You know, the getting present, which meditation is helpful for that. I've found breath work to be extraordinarily helpful for me.
What kind? We haven't talked about this. I'm curious.
I've done a few different kinds, but I've done a lot of the Wim Hof, which, you know, got very famous. People know about that. But I've also through yoga and meditation and some breath work, it's just reminded me a lot of times, even just in my life, to just like, because the breath is extremely calming. Like it's kind of a cheat code for calming yourself down, or getting control, or getting present, or
it's actually pushing buttons on the nervous system dashboard.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think there's lots of others. I mean, people do. I've explored, not in depth, but some other breathwork techniques. Any of them I've ever done, I felt amazing. Like you can really, you can feel, you know, you can do the Wim Hof breathing and sort of feel like you're floating on a cloud. Like can be quite a remarkable experience. You can clear things. Breathwork, definitely for me, keeping priorities in order is huge. And then out of that for me comes not just working all the time, and getting into nature, right? That's been hugely critical for me, is not spending too much time inside, in an apartment, in a house, in a room, in an office, you know, in the city, like being outside, trees, water, rivers, streams, ocean, beach. You know, these things are very healing. The sun for me is hugely critical. Probably spend more time in the sun than any human on earth. I love the sun. Sun gazing has been very helpful for me.
Do you do that?
I do that almost every day.
Really?
I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it.
I haven't heard about this.
Yeah,
I know lots of it, especially in Vilcabamba. Vilcabamba attracts all the types for all the practices. I don't think there's any practice that's not being done in Vilcabamba.
100%.
So I didn't know you were a sun gazer.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's amazing. Like you can sit there and just, you know, late in the day, like the last 45 minutes, I mean, it does stuff. It definitely does stuff.
Okay, I love it.
You know, obviously, there's been a lot of, the mental side for me is huge. So I used to read books constantly, then that sort of switched over to audiobooks, which has now sort of morphed just into YouTube. But there's incredible, I mean, all of the most profound spiritual teachings are now blasted all over YouTube,
and you can get so niche into what your mind is attracting right now. Like
totally.
There's so many avenues in YouTube versus a book is like there's only so many out there. I mean, I know there's hundreds of thousands, but YouTube, you can get really deep with YouTube. And I mean that, as ridiculous as that sounds, it's true.
And they're just good reminders.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's good. They're good reminders. It's like if I put something on that's going to remind me of something that I've heard already 1,000 times, but just aren't practicing. That 10-minute shower where I'm listening to that thing could be the thing that resets what I need to reset, so then I can have the reminder to then go out into the world the way I want to go out into the world, and you know, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, those are some of the things for me.
I love it. I was going to add something about consistency, but what were you just about to say?
No, I just wanted something quick.
Yes, please.
Sometimes I have had information from YouTube that it was in print of myself, and when they said it, I'm like, she's reading my mind, like she knows what I'm thinking, like where did I get this information from, like how is possible? So no, yes, it's amazing what is the content in YouTube in different languages now available. I'm glad, but those were not open for me when I was asleep.
Right.
When you were asleep. And most of that YouTube content, because it's just over a year ago, it was there. Maybe 10 years ago, it wasn't as much on YouTube, and certainly not 20. It wasn't even existent. But when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I mean this in a sweet way. YouTube is a big teacher for a lot of people. And yes, you could also mean the guru and the practice human Shrami teacher or whatever, intellectual, you know, scientist or a yoga teacher. But also, and this is a bit what I was going to say, like it takes a certain level of, how do I frame this? I don't want to say self-discipline, because that sounds a little militant and harsh, but you have to step up and you have to take self-responsibility. If you're someone who wants to do self-improvement, is curious what we're talking about, it actually takes work to do it. It doesn't just happen only from listening to YouTube. That's a reminder to all of us to then go do the practice with your work, your job, your kids that you show up for, the challenges, the car doesn't work. It's like, okay, now this is the real life test. All those Ram Dass lectures I've been listening to for 13 years. How I'm going to deal with the mechanic in Loha. Like, what am I going to do about the situation? Am I going to let this test take the bait and just blow off my handle? It's a separate conversation for a separate time, but I've been challenged with a car here in Vilcabamba as part of my, what's the story? Like, what's the message here, right? So that's
the
another.
As always, let go.
and trying
it
let go.
It will fix by itself. Like I promise.
Yeah, it's true.
And just seeing, and so that thing.
But it's like let go and take action.
But that's what
like,
that's what I was. I mean, I want to say something about consistency. Maybe I'll get there or I won't. But it's like that's where my edge possibly has been. It's like to let go and accept. But at the same time, I need to follow up. There's people that if you don't check in on them, your car will sit there for 3 months and they won't actually touch it.
True.
I'm a gringa that doesn't speak the language. It's trying to be respectful. That's a woman. It's not getting me anywhere. I need people to help me. Some may or may not be around this table who know the story. I need community support with the scene. And it's like to leverage my friends and their relationships and to have them help me when they're so busy. It's like, how do I balance this or just let it all go? So this is the constant edge that we have to have.
What I mean about let go is not like, forget about it. No. What I mean about let go is like, it's kind of spiritual. It's kind of like, if that is stressing you out.
Yes.
It got you.
Yeah. I took the bait.
Till the point that it's like, it's okay. It'll be okay. It sucks and it feels good. Accept.
I'm just owning whatever it is.
And I don't know. This is kind of like what it was for me, or what in my experience, when every time like I travel with something, I had really actually to like let go. It's okay.
Yeah.
If that's actually need to happen that way,
that's what's gonna happen.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I have zero control and I accept it.
Yeah.
But from the heart, but believing that inside of you, that's true. For me, that's what is working.
Do you mind if I add on to that? That level of believing, there's a great phrase. You can't keep a secret stash of anger or hate in your heart. Just that last 10% that you don't let anyone know about, and you're being all cool in public. You're engaging. You're having the conversations for the 25th time about the same car part that's needed, and everyone's just curious. If I have a secret stash of pissed offness that's hiding in there, I hadn't passed the test. I took the bait. You know. Oh, that's my alarm. How do we? Hold on here. Time out, everybody.
Yeah. So that attitude, in my experience, then opens the door for the solution. And so that's I mean, that's
my experience. Like, I promise you, like some things that were, I couldn't recognize myself, the things I used to believe like 1 year ago, and see myself and believe what I believe now, and like how my experiences switch just because I just had to like accept it. It's amazing. I mean, like,
Wow.
I have a lot of peace because it's like I did that level. I'm like, all right, what is the next? And believe me, the next one was not easier. It was harder. But it was like,
You
all
get
right,
rewarded with
it's okay.
grander
With
challenges
more,
at a
that's right.
deeper level. It's like,
okay.
congratulations,
it
you
was
made
kind
it.
of like a test.
Now
to
it
see,
gets
like,
hard.
did you actually?
That's the video game.
Yeah.
Level 5 is not easier than level 2. You've ascended. It's like, congratulations. Now you're varsity. Let's go.
And accepting that is crucial, because that's another trap, right? Thinking like, well, I'm going to learn this lesson and then my life's going to be smooth sailing.
Yeah.
I'm good then. Right. And the truth is that there isn't a finish line. There isn't an end to this. So learn the lesson, enjoy the reward, be happy about that, and then understand that, cool, now there's going to be the next lessons to learn, which like humans tend to learn lessons through suffering and failure. So it's like, it is what it is,
Yeah.
it is what
It's
it is.
true.
And we just have to accept that is the experience we signed up for,
Yeah.
is to learn these lessons however they come. And then having that attitude about it you described, I think, is very useful.
Absolutely.
It goes back to a little bit that previous episode of expectations and acceptance.
Yeah.
But you knew me from 1 year ago. I wasn't like that at all. Because I didn't.
No, I mean, you've transformed your life in the last less than a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all new for you. But yeah, you're which is something I really I admire it, but I'm jealous of it. It's like I'm envious that you have this capacity to implement the things you understand and change them and actually like live them with extreme velocity. Like I've understood things that you're just starting to understand now for like 12 13 years. I'm still working on them. I'm still trying to figure out how to live them, and you're like oh, this is how that works. Oh, cool, got it. And like it's amazing. It's beautiful. Like it's really.
I won't repeat everything you just said, but that's how I feel about Heide. Like it's really it. And I don't want to put you on the spot and the whole thing, but it's very interesting to watch, and that's almost a little bit of trap. I won't speak for you, Jesse, but for me, because there comes a bit of, I haven't really felt jealousy, but I've just been in this like.
No, I'm just joking about
it. But there's a temptation for that. It's like, wait, I had to read so many more books and do that bullshit for so many more years than she did. I'm like, I met her at the very beginning. It took me way longer than 13 months to be able to be at peace with some things that are going on in your life. We all have stuff going on in your perspective. I'm thinking that is actually so wise beyond your years. And I don't mean specifically, just how the age you are, but just in your journey, that you've been and we all have different paths, and I think that's kind of the beauty of this whole thing, our interweaving of these different paths. And one other quick thought, just some speaking here, how you're saying about the challenges just get bigger, or that we just up level, level 5 is harder, level 2. I got this metaphor of surfing. I've done some very small wave surfing, because basically I never got higher than a certain level, but I can get up and I can do 3 to 4 foot waves. Like it's a thing, but I can't do 6 foot, I just never continued to live in a certain place where I had access to that. But it gets more fun. So the better you get at surfing, the bigger the waves you can surf, and the more awesome the whole experience is. So the more challenges that we work through, we get to that next level in the video game of our conscious evolution. We actually are playing on a bigger playing field with maybe grander challenges that seem like, oh, that's a bigger challenge than I faced before. But there becomes more of a dance to it. Or I speak for myself. Like there's a flow, there's a trusting of knowing this is all happening for a reason, versus 3 levels ago or whatever the metaphor is, I was trying to control it all. All right, we're just going to let this go. And I'm going to watch myself dance with this now. And that it actually is play. And it actually is fun. And there's a certain point we get to where it's like, you know what? We're just here, just being the experience that we've created. And there we go.
Yeah.
Beautiful last words, guys. If you
never mind.
Never mind.
Having fun in this experience, that's not good.
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, that's the main point.
I agree. What she said.
Guys, if you enjoyed the episode,
you.
please put a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. We'd love to hear from you in the comments, any suggestions on topics, any experiences you'd like to share. We'd love to hear from you. It really helps us to hear from you guys and understand what you're getting out of our conversations. Yeah. So again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
See you soon.
If you're interested in real estate properties, all of our property videos will now be uploaded on a different channel. Please click the link in the description down below.